everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. In today's tutorial, we are going to talk about how you can crochet your very own 3-block cardigan in any size. Now, I talk about the breakdown at the beginning, and then I actually go through and create the cardigan. A lot of times when I discuss these techniques in a crochet quick chat, many of you have actually asked me to physically show you in a full garment. So in today's tutorial, we're making this sweet little baby cardigan, and it's a size for roughly 6 to 9 months. But I do discuss how we can size this all the way up to an adult size. And what I'll do too is the first portion of this tutorial, there will also be a video in the Crochet Quick Chats playlist so that you can quickly just refer to the technique of how to create your own 3-block cardigan if you don't want to watch the whole tutorial. So there's going to be a reference there for you. So I'm really excited to show you guys how this works. Really nice and easy to create. If you're a super beginner, I think you're going to die laughing at how easy this really is going to be. Even if the only stitch you know is a single crochet stitch, you can already create your own cardigan. Now, I actually used the linked single crochet stitch, which creates this beautiful little texture here. If you haven't seen the stitch yet, don't fret. I'll take you through it nice and easy. I also have a separate tutorial on how to create this stitch, as well as a few other projects that I've created using this stitch. And in fact, I'll leave the links to all of those in the description box down below if you are curious to check those out. So I'm really excited to show you guys this project today because I think it's going to change the way you approach crocheting garments, and hopefully it'll give you the freedom to create your own. So without any more chatter, let's get right into how to crochet your very own easy peasy 3-block cardigan. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure that you've got a measuring tape on hand and also some measuring charts, which I'm going to get to in a second. For this particular project I'm working on, because I'm going to do it for a baby size, I am using this lovely Trubu yarn. Now you can use this for an adult size as well. It is a finer weight yarn. It is a lightweight number 3. It comes in 100 gram skeins, which contain 241 yards or 220 meters. This will be enough, and I have some of this in a pink color just for a little bit of the trim. This for me is going to be enough for a baby cardigan. Obviously, if you're doing this for a toddler, an older child, or even an adult, if you're using the same yarn, you're going to obviously need more. Okay, so this is Trubu by Lion Brand. And the hook size I'm going to be using is actually going to be a 4.5 millimeter hook, which is also known as a G or a size 7. As always, make sure you have a pair of scissors and a yarn needle on hand to sew in all of your ends at the end. And so let's get to these charts. So you can go to the website crochetcrafty.com and download any of the sizing charts that you need. So like I said, for this one I'm making for a baby. So I've got a baby crochet garment sizing charts. We also have adult sizing charts as well as toddlers and children. I've had a few of you ask me some questions on other garment tutorials on how you can size up. And this tutorial will be a great guide for this particular style of cardigan on how you can size up. All the designs I create with regards to clothing are easily customizable, and they have to do with just figuring out a couple of measurements. So that's what we're going to start off with here. And I just have a little outline here because it's just going to help me kind of take you through the first step, which is taking measurements of your garment before you get started. Okay, so the 2 measurements you are going to need for this project, regardless of how large you're making it, is you're going to need a back to waist measurement and your chest circumference, or the largest part of your torso. For most people, it is around the chest. If you're making this for an adult and your midsection or your stomach area happens to be the largest part of your torso, then that is the measurement you are going to take. So this is where the sizing charts come in handy. So like I said, I'm going to make mine for a baby about 6 to 12 months. So I just look at my chart here and I look for my age. So there's the 6 months. And the charts are in both metric as well as imperial. So you've got inches as well as centimeters. So I just look for my back to waist, okay? And then I go across here and mine is 7 inches. So I'm just gonna write that down just so that I have it on hand here. Oops, let me put this in red. So my back to waist measurement is 7 inches, okay? And the other measurement I need is my chest circumference. And so I go back to my chart here, and chest is the very first one, and I go find my age, 6 months, and it is 17 inches. So that means all the way around is 17 inches. So I'm just going to write that down here. Okay. So when you look at your little outline here of your person, back to waist measurement simply means the vertical length from the back of the neck all the way to your waist. Now, if you would like your cardigan to sit longer, you just start from the nape of the neck and just go to as long as you would like the length to be. So some people like theirs to sit a little bit more around the hips, then that is the measurement you would use. So again, regardless of size, that's the measurement you want to take, okay? The chest circumference is you're going to take that tape measure and wrap it around and behind so you get the full measurement around. That is your chest circumference. Again, if the stomach area happens to be larger, then that is the circumference you are going to take. Once you have that measurement, you're just going to write that down, and you are now equipped to make your 3-block cardigan. And so what I love about this style of cardigan is that it is so easy to make that once you have these measurements, you can make it for any size. So why do we call it a 3-block cardigan? Well, you're essentially going to make the body of your cardigan in 3 pieces or 3 blocks. Now, yes, there's sleeves, but all cardigans have sleeves, so I don't really count that as part of the blocks. So the first block is going to be the one that goes across the back. Okay, so that's one panel there. That's going to cover the back. And then you've got 2 panels, 2 front panels that come across the front here to close up the cardigan in front. Just like that. And then once you have your 3 blocks together, you just sew them, leaving openings for the armholes, and your body is constructed. And then of course, you're going to have sleeves that you're going to attach after. So what are we starting with here? You're going to start with a back panel. Then you have 2 front panels. And then of course at the end you've got your sleeves. And of course this is not to scale. So this is 1, 2, and 3. This is your 3-block cardigan. Now this is where the measurement comes into play. We are going to be working our panels vertically this way. You can also work your panels horizontally and work your way up. But just for the design of this cardigan, I'm going to work vertically. So that is where I need my back to waist measurement first. Okay. So, oh, by the way, one little thing here before we go on. You want to take your chest circumference, that number, you want to divide it by 2. Okay. So that way then you'll have a measurement for the front on its own and a measurement across the back on its own. So 17 divided by 2 is 8.5 inches. Okay. Then you're going to take that number and divide it by 2 again. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And that number divided by 2 is 4.25. Okay? So take your measurements, then do the calculations and leave these numbers aside. So when you're working on the first block, because like I said, I'm working vertically, this is why I need that back to waist measurement. So my measurement is 7 inches. So that means, let me just go back to my blue here and I'll zone in here. So that means here, this length needs to be 7 inches. So when I start my first panel, I'm going to create my foundation chain up to a length of 7 inches. So like, let me just throw a number out there. Like if you're an adult and you're doing like 40 inches, your chain, you're going to do your first chain the length of 40 inches. And that's basically how you size this type of cardigan to any size. Now, keep in mind that if you're a tight crocheter, you're going to want to go up a hook size, because if you're really, really tight, then as you work stitches into that chain, it's going to kind of ripple a little bit. So just keep that in mind. You want to have a nice even stitch and keep these stitches fairly relaxed. Okay. Now, so you're going to do your chain for 7 inches or 40 inches if you're doing it for an adult. And then you're going to work your stitch, whatever the stitch may be, which I'm going to go over with you guys. And you're going to work your way across the panel. And you might be asking, well, how do I know how wide to make the panel? Well, that's where this number comes into play here. So you go to your chest circumference, and the number that you divided by 2, that's going to give you 1 full side. So that's across the back. So you are going to keep going until you have 8.5 inches. So again, that's my measurement. It would be whatever measurement you took and divide it by 2. Okay. So once you've done the number of rows that you need up until that width, your back panel is complete. We're then going to move on to the 2 front panels. And now this is where the second calculation of dividing this number in half. So we're actually just going to make the same panel essentially, but we're going to cut it in half. So you will start again by creating a chain. That's going to be 7 inches. And you do as many rows as you need until you get half of this measurement. Now, in reality, I actually am going to take off that 1/4 inch and I'm just going to go up to 4. So I'm only going to do 4 inches. And the reason why I do that is because I always want a little bit of a gap in the center, because I generally do a finishing round, or maybe I'm going to make some buttonholes, and that's going to close in the gap there. So for my panels, I'm going to make 7 inches still, same height, because you want it to match the back panel. And then this time I'm only going to go up to 4 inches. And then I'm going to create a second panel exactly the same as that first one. Once you've got those 3 panels done, your 3-block cardigan body, so to speak, is complete. You can then take these pieces and you're going to place them. So let me just draw it over here separately. So you take your back panel, and then you're going to take your 2 front panels. You're going to place them on top of the back panel. And then you're just going to leave a little bit of an opening for your sleeves. And then you're just basically going to sew up these sides, sew up your shoulders, and the body of your cardigan is done. And then, of course, you're going to make those blocks for your sleeve. Now you can do the sleeves a couple of different ways. You can create 2 separate blocks, in which case you will need to take a measurement. Whoops, that was a long sleeve. You will need to take the measurement of your sleeve length, okay? And so again, you can come back to the chart, okay? And you just look for sleeve length, which is underarm to wrist, and you go across. So for me, I will make my sleeve length of 6.5 inches. And the other number you're going to want to find is the armhole depth. okay? And that's usually going to be the circumference around. I'm going to double check that. But you know what? If you're ever uncertain, you take your trusty measuring tape and you're going to measure around the arms. So you're going to measure the circumference of the arm somewhere around the upper bicep. So just like what you did with the chest, you'll measure around here. And that measurement is how wide you're going to make your sleeve. Okay? So I'm kind of explaining a lot before we actually get started. And I'll probably also leave this part of the video as a separate video in our Crochet Quick Chats playlist, because that's a playlist that has a lot of commonly asked questions. And this is definitely one that I get a lot about sizing to your size. And this is the perfect tool to help you size up or size down any of these simple construction cardigans. So this is what we've got going on to begin with. Now, let's get our yarn, and I'm going to get you started on creating your 3-block cardigan. Okay, so I just changed the background here because I'm using white yarn, and white yarn on white background is not going to be seen. So we're going to begin by placing a slip knot onto our hook, just like that. For my length or my back to waist measurement of 7 inches, I know that I need to chain up 35. So I'm going to chain up 35. Now, if you're doing yours for an adult, like I said, you're going to chain up. You just keep chaining until you get to the length that you need. Notice I'm not chaining too tightly. Understand that there will be some slight shrinkage sometimes once you start working into the first row. So don't worry about that, because we're going to add a bottom cuff, a collar, like all of that stuff can get fixed. Now, if it's super short, then it could mean that you're just simply crocheting too tightly. In which case, if you know that about yourself, throw on a few extra chains at the end, like maybe put an extra 5 or 10, depending on how tightly you go. So I'm just going to finish my 35 chains here. And then I'm going to get you guys started on row number 1 of your panel. Okay, so once you've got the length of your chain that you need, so I have my 35 stitches, you're going to chain 1 more. And then we're going to work our way back across this chain. Now, we're using the linked single crochet stitch, but the very first stitch in the row is always going to be a half double crochet. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip the first chain. Remember that the loop on the hook never counts as a stitch. We're going to find the second one. So that's the first one. See, it's getting too tight there. We're going to find the second one, and we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, and we're going to half double crochet into that stitch. Just like that. This yarn can be a little bit splitty. Okay. And then we're going to continue on with the linked single crochet stitch. And so you can see there's a couple little loops there. So you're going to find that first loop on the left side, you're going to insert your hook into there first and then go into the next chain in order to pull up your loop. And now it looks like you have 3 loops on the hook. You will yarn over and pull through all 3. So it's going to kind of make you feel like you've got a half double crochet happening there. Still can't quite see it just yet. So this is why, again, this stitch will be tricky if you are a tight crocheter, because you want to be able to insert your hook into the left leg of that stitch you just did and then go into the following chain. Pull up a loop and pull through all 3. I'm going to do that one more time. Insert your hook into that left leg. It's that vertical loop there, and then go into the next chain, which is right there, and pull up all 3. Okay, so you're getting a stitch that's going to be snuggled next to the other. Now, I know with this first row, because you're working into the chain, it can be tricky, right? It's not very stable yet. You're trying to work into those vertical loops and get into the next chain. If you are struggling with this, you can simply just place one single crochet into each stitch all the way across. Row number 1 is just, we're trying to establish the structure of your rows. So if you wanted to opt to do a single crochet for the first row, you can totally do that. I'm just doing it this way just because I'm very comfortable doing the linked single crochet. And so that is what I'm going to do. So you're going to place one into each stitch all the way across. And when you get to the end of row number 1, you should have 35 stitches. Okay, so I have finished row number 1 and looks something like this. The beautiful thing about the linked single crochet stitch is it's very stretchy, so it's really nice. Okay, so I'm just going to take you on to row number 2. We always chain 1 and then turn our work and right back into that very first stitch. So now you've got regular stitches to work into. We're always going to place a half double crochet to begin. Now some people would still do a single crochet, but I like the fact that there is those 3 loops there so that when you work the linked single crochet stitch, it's a lot easier to just see that left leg there. You insert and then find the next stitch and then pull up your loop and your linked single crochet is done. And now you're off to the races with the loop right there. Next stitch, pull up, whoops, and pull through. Okay, one more time so you can see that that loop is right there. I insert my hook through there first and then into the next stitch. Now because it creates, it's like a little bit of a half double crochet stitch. There's a little bit of a ridge here. See if I turn my work there, you can see the tops of the V's there. So you do go into that. It's going to feel like you're going into the back loops, but you're not. You're going to go right in through there, pull up, and pull through all of them. Okay, this is now what you're going to do, one into each stitch, just like we did in row 1, all the way to the end. And you're just going to repeat row number 2. And at the end of every row, you always chain 1 and turn and begin again. So this right here, that's my neck to waist length. And I am working back and forth to create the back panel. So for me, I'm going to keep creating my length until I hit 8.5 inches. So if you're doing this for a larger size, you're going to go until half of your full chest circumference. Okay. Once you're done that, you will snip your yarn and fasten off. And then you're going to do you're going to start your 2 front panels. So you will begin actually the same way. You're going to chain your length. So I'm still going to do another 35 chains. Now, anytime you do more than one of something, and you guys have heard me say this in all of my mitten tutorials as well as my booty tutorials, it's just the way of the world. For whatever reason, it either we start to relax a little bit or sometimes we tense a little bit every time we start making a duplicate of something. So do not fret if maybe when you go to make your front panel that it might be a smidge longer, it might be a smidge shorter. Don't worry, we're going to block it all. It will stretch. It will all be okay. So I'm going to set you loose here for now. You're going to create your back panel. Then you're going to start your 2 front panels. I'm actually going to come back on here once I've started my first front panel, just to kind of guide you through how it's going to compare to your back panel. Okay, so I finished my back panel and I have done a total of 38 rows. So if you're creating a 3-block cardigan for the same size I am for a baby, 6 months old, you will do 38 rows. So if you're doing this for an adult, you're going to just go until you get your width. And so for me, I've measured it. It is 8.5 inches. I've also gone ahead and started the front panel, which you can see here. came across here. Now this one is only going to be 4 inches, remember from those measurements. And so what I did here with the pink, I added a little bit of detail here at the edge. So what you're going to do to create your 2 front panels is you're going to begin the exact same way. So you're going to have your 35 chains plus 1, and then you're going to do your linked single crochet back and forth, just like we did for the back panel. And you're going to create a length that's half the length of your back panel. Now, I actually recommend doing about an inch less than half, anywhere between half an inch to a full inch less than half, because you want to have a little bit of room to create a collar later on. Now, if you're doing the same size cardigan I am, for my front panels, I did 19 rows. So I did about 17 rows in the white, then row 18, I just did 1 row of pink. Sorry, 16 rows of the white. Row 17 was the pink. Row 18, I went back to the white, and the last row I did the pink. So if I turn my work over, you can see that. So if you're looking to add a little bit of a detail like I am, that's what you would do. Otherwise, you can do it in a solid color. So the next step is to create those 2 front panels. I've done the one, I'm going to do my second one now. Then you'll have your 3 blocks. And then I can take you through how we're going to put our body together, and then we'll talk about the sleeves. Okay guys, so my 3 blocks are complete. So these are all the pieces that you need to create the body of your 3 block cardigan. So I've done both the front panels. You can see here that I added a little bit of that pink detail just to give it a little something. I also did want to make a little note about measurements. So for example, I know that my chest measurement for my particular cardigan was 17 inches. So if you divide that in half to create 1 panel, that's 8.5. But what you always want to do is give yourself a little extra bit of room for ease. This is what we call ease when we are creating garments, because of course you want to be able to move in it. So mine was 8.5. But I just added about a 1/4 inch on top of that measurement. And that's just going to give me a little bit of wiggle room within the garment. Now for the 2 front panels, I kind of just allowed them to touch. There is a little bit of a gap there, right there, which is exactly what I wanted. Okay, so 3 blocks are done, but we need some sleeves for this cardigan. So I've already done a sleeve here, and for my sleeve, I also want to add the same kind of pink detail that I'm going to do on the inner collar. And basically what you're going to do is you're now going to find what your armhole depth is. So in my case, if we go back to the chart here, my armhole depth, I'm going to go across here for my size, is 3.5 inches. Now the depth just means one, like the depth of the armhole. But if you're just taking your own measurements, like let's say you're making this for yourself, what you want to do is measure the circumference right around between your deltoid and your bicep here. So just under your arm, and you're just going to take a measurement. So if this says 3.5, it really means that the full circumference is 7 inches. Now why that's important, so when you fold it in half, then you're going to get your 3.5 inches, okay? So for this size, I actually, in order to get my 6-inch width, I actually just chained my 35 chains again. Now, don't forget, for this panel, I needed 7 inches, but I only did a little over 6 because we're going to add a little bit of trim on the bottom that's going to extend that length. So for my sleeve, I started off by chaining 35 again, plus 1, which is 36 chains, then into the second chain from the hook. I proceeded to do those linked single crochets exactly like we did before. The difference is that I did a total of 28 rows for my sleeve. And that was so that I could create my sleeve length. So that's the other measurement you're going to want to look at. So for mine here, sleeve length, which is the underarm to the wrist, it is 6.5 inches. So I did my length. So for me, those 28 rows gave me the 6.5 inches. And I'm not really going to add too much at the end because, again, I wanted that pink trim to be my cuff. Now, the beautiful thing is if once I construct my cardigan together, if I feel like I need a little bit more length, I can just simply crochet a little bit more around there. Probably I would do another round of single crochets if I needed it, but I am pretty happy with my length because, as you can see, I've got exactly 6.5 inches, and sleeves are always super easy to extend the length, just like it is easy to extend the length along the bottom. It's always the width that you want to really pay close attention to. So I've got one more sleeve to do. So if you have finished your 3 blocks, you're now going to do 2 sleeves. So in total, you're going to have 5 pieces now. Once you're done that, meet me back here. Then we're going to sew all of our pieces together. Okay, so just for the sake of those that want to keep this nice and organized, I'm just going to put a little graphic up here that says we are starting the sleeve portion. Now again, this is for my size. So you want to start with the width of your sleeves. So you want to start with the full circumference of your sleeves. So like I said, mine just so happens to be the same measurement as the length of my cardigan. This wouldn't necessarily work for other sizes. So I'm just going to put a slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to chain up 35 just like I did for the other panels. Okay, so I've chained my 35 chains plus 1 more. So I've got 36 in total. And now I'm going to find the second chain from the hook. Remember, you don't count that one. So I have 1 and 2. And into that chain, I'm going to place a half double crochet. Okay, so pretty straightforward. You've done this for the other panels. You're going to do 1 into each stitch all the way to the end. And then at the end, you chain 1, turn your work, half double crochet, and then repeat exactly the same way we did for the other panels. My sleeve panel, if you are working my size, is 28 rows in length, and that includes these pink rows as well. Remember that you are trying to create now the length of your sleeve. So if you have one of these sizing charts, whether you're working on it for a child or an adult, you want to always find the sleeve length. So you would just go along the way. And of course, my charts are in both metric and centimeters, so it should help you out there. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to do the sleeves and then come back here and we're going to put our cardigan together. Okay, so I have all of my pieces done. I've got my 2 sleeves finished, my 2 front panels, and my back panel. So we are now ready to start sewing our pieces together to create our cardigan.